All right, so it looks like I'm live, and I'm going to be talking about how to get the most out of tea, how to enjoy tea, and how to become a connoisseur and more of a tea expert, let's say. But first, let me go ahead and share the link on Facebook and other relevant applications. Got some water heating up. So let me again share this link and then I'll be ready to go in a minute. It's funny whenever people are live or they're on camera that their intonation or their inflection changes. And whenever people on camera, they talk in a way in which they would never talk normally. So people's voices go up and down for random reasons. And it's kind of like, why? You would never really talk like that in a conversation, and the constant inflection roller coaster kind of makes people generally sound less intelligent. I think I remember watching a documentary thing about vocal fry, which is, if you don't know what vocal fry is, just watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians or listen to them talk, and that's vocal fry. And it was basically positing and wondering, why do people speak in a way that makes them sound less intelligent and makes them sound kind of like children? And I think it primarily comes from there. But it's just kind of a funny thing and something I've always noticed from people who are on camera, and then myself sometimes when I'm on camera. It's like, why would I talk like that? That's not how I would ever speak in a conversation with a person. But that's not really the point of the video. The point of the video is going to talk about some of the things to pay attention to and to look for when you're drinking tea, so that you can actually start to discern quality in a more tangible way. Because I realized I'm started to sell more higher quality teas, but I perhaps didn't educate people on how to actually notice the quality or notice the difference or develop their skill set to a higher degree. And so I thought that's probably a good reason to do that, because it's something that I come back to for myself as well. And one of the major drawbacks with, I think, the tea community at large is people are really cerebral, or they're very fake facade spirituality, trying to be Asian, all these types of silly things. None of which has anything to do with enjoying a thing in a tangible, visceral, real way. So I'm not going to be doing any of those things. And the biggest thing, and to me the biggest key, and the major entry point in, is basically when you drink it, you put your mind in your mouth, on your tongue, and in your throat, and you pay attention to the back of your throat and the back of your tongue. So when you swallow, you listen to this place, to this area with your mind, and you feel what's happening there. And that is usually, at least for me, that is the doorway into the rest of the experience. So that is the major key. So when I take that drink, I pay attention to how it feels when it goes over my tongue, when it goes down my throat, and then when it comes back. If it's good, it should be thick. It should cover my whole tongue, should cover the whole of the back of my throat, should coat it and then come back. And then now I have a pleasant flavor in my mouth. And then from there, usually my awareness will start to spread out through the rest of my body, and I'll get more keyed in and dialed into what else might be happening or how it might be making me feel. But that is really the biggest key, and something that sounds very simple, because it is. Sounds very basic, because it is. Yet in reality, it's going to require a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of practice and dedication and discernment, because you can only get out of something what you can put into it, which is to say, as good as your skill level is, or your level of perception is what you'll get out of it. If your perception isn't very good, your skill level isn't very good, your experience is low, then you're not going to probably get that much out of it. So when we're tasting it, when we're drinking it, it sounds kind of funny, but in many ways, flavor is the least important quality, because flavor, like shitty teas can taste good. That's not that difficult to pull off. The question becomes then, what is the actual texture of the mouth? Does it cover the whole mouth and the tongue? How does it make it actually feel? Does it make me salivate, make my mouth feel kind of moist? Or does it really dry it out, and does it feel harsh? Does it burn the back of my teeth? Does it burn my throat? Does it make it itchy? Does it make it scratchy? Does it have irritation? Does it cause everything in me to go and raise up, or does it cause everything to kind of sink and relax and cause me to get warmer and more comfortable? The flavor is there, yes, but we're more so concerned with the texture and the quality basis of what we are experiencing. So that is one of the most major and important keys to keep in mind and to come back to and to practice. There's other, trivial type things, or not so trivial, but to me slightly less important, which is the actual aroma in the pot, which I'm drinking an 80s aged Shung Pu-erh, so the aroma is slightly secondary, although I'm getting like incense and other type notes. And the flavor is multi-layered and a lot going on, but also the texture and the body feel is like what I'm going for. And this tea and in general, oftentimes goes like right to my head. So let me see. The mouth qualities of a young shung, which I drink, return sometimes hours after finishing with the drinking. Yeah, that's a good sign. That's called the echo. And a good tea will have an echo, and a good tea will be able to brew for a long period of time. And the flavor will be somewhat consistent throughout that entire process, depending on the type. Obviously, if you're comparing a green tea, that's going to wash out much quicker than, let's say, a Liu-bao or an aged tea, and then many things in between. But again, like to me personally, flavor is not that difficult to achieve. There's tons of teas that are somewhat tasty. And to me, the quality basis is the body feel and characteristic, devoid of imagination, devoid of fantasy, devoid of hyperbole, devoid of idealistic nonsense. And there's a couple magazines and websites and organizations that I'm speaking to particularly on that note, which I'm not going to name, but people just get kind of carried away into la la land, which makes sense because typically these people are very blood deficient within this perspective of Chinese medicine. They're very qi deficient, so they're generally ungrounded, flighty, floaty, not really in their body. Hence why they're obsessed with being in the moment. Hence why they're obsessed with being in the now and being in this and being in that and cultivating this and all this nonsense, because they're obviously lacking it. Meaning if you just ate a meal, your mind isn't going to be running crazy with, oh, food this and food that, I need to be satiated, I need to eat more food. Why? Because you have the thing that you wanted, so you don't have to think about it or worry about it anymore. Another example is sometimes, historically there's been these figures in public, maybe they're religious figures, but they are outwardly very pious or perhaps homophobes, but then it comes out later on that they're actually deviants, they're actually terrible people, and they were doing a lot of shady things. So their outward problem with something was just reflecting their own inner turmoil and conflict. Because if you have the ability to just chill out and enjoy something in a simple, direct, basic way, then you don't need to like do a magazine and a website and dedicate your life to something as trivial and mundane as just being in the moment. Sorry to bash, but it's just something that comes up a lot when we get into the arena of tea. And I only mention it because I will sometimes get messages and offers from people who subscribe to this, and their teas are never any good and never have really anything going on aside from a story, aside from a fantasy, aside from some idealistic vision of how the world should be, which is great, but inherently lacking. So the point of that is just that's not really my focus or my interest or what I go for. And to be a human being and enjoy something is the most basic, simple thing. So you don't really need to obsess about it or think that it has anything to do with spirituality or some Asian fantasy. Not sure why I got off on that tangent, but it's just somewhat entertaining to me. But people might be like, "Oh, you're negative. That's not very nice." But the point of it is, you don't need all of that extraneous nonsense to be able to enjoy something as simple as tea. And all these modernizations and things and fantasies that people are caught up in have literally nothing to do with the actual cultures of which they're allegedly from. And the people who are actually in those cultures make fun of those other people who are basically just ripping off and appropriating that culture. So anyways, those are, I guess, also ways to enjoy tea, which is not be ungrounded. And the point of that was I was saying these people are already very blood deficient. So if you're already very blood deficient and chi deficient, you start drinking tea a lot, it's just going to make your blood more thin. So you're going to be more predisposed to fantasy and nonsense. You're going to be more easily duped because the strength of our blood within Chinese medicine has a lot to do with the strength of our Shen, which is not spirit. It's not spiritual. It actually means the mind. So if our blood is deficient, that means our mind is going to be weak and deficient as well. Hence, this is the chicken or the egg. Who knows? So, all right. So we have the mouthfeel, of course. We have the aroma. And then we have basically how long it can brew. And there's some variation in there because let's say you're just taking a few grams of tea and throwing it in a thermos and putting boiling water on it. Yeah, you're going to get a lot less brews out of it because the amount of skill required to do that is minimal. Versus, let's say you have an aged pot, then that would be called Gung Fu brewing, which basically just means to brew with skill, to brew with some refinement. So the effects, the flavors, and the lasting quality is going to be much different from that basis. Obviously, dependent on the amount of grams that you use and the quality of the tea. There's some really insane quality teas that I have where I can brew 2 grams for like 15 times. Like they will just keep going and going and going and going. So I see people posting online sometimes about doing 12 grams or 8, 10 grams of tea, and I'm just like, why? Are you either A, completely numbed to your physiology, or does the tea just suck? Like, how is that reasonable? Just crazy. Let's see. I think there was a question which says, how long are the effects? What does that mean? I don't know. I've honestly never thought about it. I've never really paid attention. The effects last quite a while. So, I don't know, it kind of just depends. I just kind of noticed that I will drink it and feel good, and that will change the course of the rest of my day, and then the rest of my day will be different. I've never really looked at it or considered it as like a buzz or a high or like a drug. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question because I've not ever paid attention to it in that way. In some ways, it kind of just depends on our metabolism and our brewing skill and the quality of our materials. There are some people who are very sensitive to tea and very sensitive to caffeine. Oftentimes, they probably just need to eat more food. And another tip which I can give is if you ever can't sleep or you feel jittery from tea or caffeine, you need to eat food. Like, this is a kind of a rookie mistake where people will say like drink tea at night and then say they can't sleep, and it's like, yeah, but if you ate some food and actually had a good meal which got things to sink down and got your blood to thicken up a little bit, then it'll probably chill you out and make you fall asleep, because tea is a pretty major metabolic stimulant. It's pretty major, can get your digestion going, in other words. So you have to be sure to eat food. And another tip I guess I can share, since I guess the point of this is to be helpful and share valuable information, is like people who get acid reflux, for example. I had a friend of mine who was dealing with this recently, and his first question was about supplements or fasting or something like this. And I'm like, well, you could stop drinking coffee and tea on an empty stomach, and you could actually start eating regular meals. Wouldn't you know that the reflux pretty much went away? It only comes back if said person doesn't eat food on a regular basis or goes too long between meals. So something as simple as that is a fix. And sometimes it's almost shocking and somewhat odd to me that I will sometimes talk to people and they'll want a supplement recommendation or some crazy strategy, but yet they don't regulate their eating habits, their sleep, or their movement. If people, I think, can actually dial in those three things, meaning wake up early, go to bed early, have a rhythm, eat regular meals every day, breakfast, like stop this skipping breakfast nonsense, and move on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to beat yourself up, but like some cardio and movement. If people can actually hit those three things consistently over, let's say, at least a month, they will see big, big, big differences in the way they feel. And a lot of times I think people have anxiety or they have depression and they have all these things that they think are big deals, when in reality it just comes back to these three basic things being way out of whack. So that's a basic thing. We could also talk about relationships, ability to relate to people in specific ways. It could be the fourth wheel on that. So basically, if people could actually dial in those three things in the most simple, basic way, I think a lot of their health problems and mental and emotional anguish would go away. And that doesn't really cost anything. It's things you're already doing, and it's so simple and direct. But I can almost guarantee with a high degree of probability that not a lot of people are willing to actually do that. But that's fine. I'll just keep repeating myself, and eventually people will be like, oh, you know what? I did that, and you know what? It actually did work, which is what my friend said. And I was like, imagine that. Let's see. What do you think about Sadhguru's inner engineering? I'm not familiar with it. I don't know what it is. I've watched a few interviews with that guy, and he seems actually humble and personable and entertaining and just kind of like a cool person, which is nice to see because usually that world is chock full of just narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, and he actually seems like a genuine person, which is great. So otherwise, I don't know. Generally, I don't know. So I can't really comment on it in an accurate way because I don't know what it is and I haven't gone deep. But I'm sure it can probably help people if people can cultivate more self-awareness and ability to self-reflect and self-regulate, and perhaps find more value, meaning, purpose, and dedication in their life, then perhaps it could be positive. Let's see. Are you still a strong supporter of probiotics, or have your views changed? I think they could be beneficial, of course. Of course, eating fermented foods, sauerkrauts, and things of that nature. There's things you can make on your own for dirt cheap, like pennies. So that can be beneficial, of course, if you need it, but it kind of just depends. And then there's a lot of information saying that actually some probiotics aren't really that beneficial for all gut types. So I don't know. There's also the other side of it, which is a lot of, I would say, significant amount of gut health is actually emotional. If we look at psychoneuroimmunology, that whole side of things, you look at the amount of neurotransmitters which are produced in the gut, and then just basically all the neural connections. I think a lot of it is just emotional, and again, it comes back to basic habits, which I was just talking about: sleeping, waking, moving, and actually eating foods that are going to keep us balanced and even. Because I think if people focus on the wrong things, typically, in my experience and in my opinion. So people will get fixated on cleanliness or purity or nutrients or isms, but ignore the basic fact of the purpose of food being nourish your blood, keep your blood strong, keep your blood even. So basically eating food with the goal of making you feel balanced, even, stable, neutral. That's it. It's not that difficult. It's not that fancy. It's not that exciting. But in reality, this is the purpose of food. So if people could just, I think, do that, again, I think it would actually solve a lot of issues and generally probably balance out a lot of the problems that people are dealing with. That's my opinion on that. Have you ever noticed broken tea leaves changing the quality of the brew? It definitely can. Like this tea that I'm brewing now, it's what we might call the shake. So basically all the dust and all the broken leaves and stuff that are at the bottom of the bag or at the bottom of the wrapper of the cake, I just grabbed a few grams of that because I didn't feel like breaking into the cake. And the flavor is different. You have to adjust sometimes because it'll just flash brew, and the flavor will come out really quick, and sometimes the effects will be like very instant and strong because you don't have the full leaf to have to break through and work your way through the fibers. It's already kind of there. So that's definitely what I've noticed. And actually, I think I have this bag right here, which is four ounces of just shake and broken leaves of the 90s shung. Because basically those were all cakes, and I had to break up all those cakes individually into ounces, which was a pain in the ass because I didn't realize the cake was going to be so hard. So then out of that, I got like 5 ounces of shake, and it's definitely not as good as the actual leaves or the actual cake, but it's still good. It's just not quite as good in my opinion. Let's see. All right. So that's pretty much, I think that's mostly what I wanted to share in terms of how to enjoy tea and how to get the best out of it. So I'll answer questions for a little bit longer, and then I'll probably head out because I gotta get some dinner before it gets too late. I'm about to eat a lot of food. What are your favorite teas based on taste or effects? Basically, my favorite teas are the ones that I sell on my website and the ones that I will sell on my website. I have 3 up there now, and I have 2 more that will be up there hopefully by the end of the month. I just ordered them and those should be on the way soon. I'm going to be posting an 80s Leo Bao, which is delicious, and a 1980s loose Pu-erh that is just the buds, like imperial grade, meaning like the baby little buds, the very tips. This purely imperial grade, and it's been aged since the 80s, and the flavor is ridiculous, like unbelievable how tasty it is and how long it brews. So those are the 2 that I'll be adding in, and that will be like 5 teas, and those are all my favorite teas. Like that's what I drink on a regular basis. Will you ever be offering oolongs on Hyperion again? I actually have some oolongs on the way. Actually, no, I have one on the way with this order that I'm going to sample, and if it's good, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be phenomenal because it's the same person that I got the other teas from, then I will sell it depending on price and quality. But I'm going to assume that it's going to be legit. So yeah, I probably will do that one. But honestly, I don't know. The oolongs that I actually like are insanely expensive, near impossible to get, but they're mind-blowing. It's like the teas that I was talking about earlier that you can take 2 grams and brew it for hours. It's ridiculous, but near impossible to get. So then it's like, I mean, this is the thing though. If I just wanted to have a website and sell tea, I have sources for so many really good teas. Teas that for most people they'd be like, this is incredible. But my quality basis is higher than that generally. And if I'm going to sell it, it has to be something that I actually care about, that I actually really value, and that I can stand behind and become excited about. If I'm just like, yeah, this is a good oolong. I mean, from a business perspective, it makes sense. Maybe I'll do it because I can get ridiculously good teas across many categories. But I don't know. I'm also just toying with the idea of later this year just launching a brand new, just straight up tea website and going full on with like teas, pots, cups, and having a whole offering and a whole spread. So if I go that route, then I'll do more oolongs or white teas or, everything basically. But that's, I gotta cross that bridge when I get to it. What's more interesting and exciting to me is the aged teas that I'm offering now and will be offering, because that's what I like and I drink myself on a daily basis. And that's what you kind of can't find on the internet. You can find okay to decent oolongs online without much problem. But I'm just kind of taking my own angle on it. So it just is another business quandary where there's tons of products that I could sell, but I mean, who knows? Let's see. Do you think it's possible to reverse gray hairs from premature aging if you focus on the basics? It just kind of depends. I mean, if it's some blood deficiency or kidney deficiency, then, resting and rebuilding and recuperating and making yourself healthier, perhaps it's possible, especially combination with herbs like Hushawu. But if it's straight up genetic, then who knows? So, I don't know. Honestly, I don't worry about it myself because I have grays, as you might be able to see. But I don't care about gray hairs. I mean, it doesn't bother me. And I know a lot of people sort of do care about it, but it's never been an issue for me. So that's my answer. It's worth doing it to find out because the other benefits will be legit. And there will be a lot of other benefits aside from just vanity or, your appearance. But if your blood and your chi get healthier and stronger, then your skin will improve, your overall health will improve, your hair will grow faster, your nails will grow faster, your eyes will be brighter. Like, a lot of other things can happen. Kind of just depends on how far you want to go with it. I guess there's one other thing I could mention, which is maybe tomorrow or Thursday, I'll be posting another new product on the website, which will be pine pollen extract. Or not extract, sorry, pine pollen powder, which is cool. So be on the lookout maybe tomorrow or Thursday or Friday or something, and I'll send out an email and do a video about the pine pollen, just because that's a product that I've gotten questions about so much, and I've gotten requests for it and people wanted to know about it. So I just decided to start selling it because I tried a few suppliers and a few samples, and it was actually pretty tasty. And I found that if I just took like a teaspoon or like a couple grams, then I didn't really notice much of an androgen boost. Like, I didn't get ramped up or feel overheated or aggressive or overly horny or anything like that. I just felt kind of a nutritive, supportive thing. So I think in that dosage range, it's just supportive and nice. But definitely if you go up the dosage, the effects definitely get stronger. But I don't need it and I don't desire it, so I haven't gone up that way. Do you ship to the UK? I've always seen grays as an underlying problem. Yeah, I ship to the UK on a regular basis. I definitely ship all over the world. Depending on the customs, like Germany, for example, they don't allow herbs and things in there, so we don't ship there because they just get sent back, and it's kind of a whole thing. But yeah, Australia, the UK, Canada, all over the US, and a lot of other random places. We definitely ship there all the time. So that is no problem. The sandalwood flavor and the incense is really coming out on this tea, and it's definitely like going to my head. Like the inside of my brain just goes. This is actually, I remember when I first sampled this tea, like I don't know, 4 months ago. I was drinking it with one of my friends, and we both looked at each other like, dude, what's going on with your head? And he was like, I know, me too. And yeah, it was just kind of an instant head change from this tea that we both experienced, and had a nice laugh about it. So it's nice to be able to daily drink it now. Because definitely when I first was getting it, it was very, very expensive. But now I'm very fortunate to have a good source. So hopefully peeps can ask more. Sorry to show you my crotch. I'm just trying to like get behind the iPad. Definitely if you want to ask more questions, then I'll hang out for a bit. Otherwise, I'll probably dip out because I gotta get some food. I'm gonna smell some agar wood. Burning some quinam right now that I've been burning for like 2 weeks, and it's still going strong, which is pretty incredible. But then again, you'd hope it would go that long if it's like $1,500 a gram. Like, I'm gonna spend $1,500 a gram on this. It needs to burn for weeks, and fortunately, it's definitely doing that, which is quite nice. All right, so it looks like there's really not any other questions, and that was pretty much. Oh, what's your favorite yoga practice if you have one? I don't have a favorite yoga practice because I don't practice yoga. So I'm sorry to wet blanket that answer, but I don't have a favorite. And, I think stretching and breathing can be very beneficial for people's health. But I definitely stretch and breathe, on a daily, multi times a day basis. But I wouldn't call that yoga. I just call that stretching and breathing because you're a human being, and that's a nice, healthy thing to do. So that's it, guys. That is live stream for today, which is Wednesday. And let's see. I'll be posting more videos later this week, and that should, yep. I have a few other projects that I've been working on lately, and I'm kind of debating on whether or not I'll do it, but I'll just give a big shout out to all of the people who bought the agrowood from me, or the agrowood oil. Very lucky individuals. Let's just say that. Yep. I think, was there some questions? I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, this tea is good, man. Yes. All right. I'll be posting later this week as I'm launching the pine pollen powder, which actually is already on the website. So if you go to Hyperion Herbs and you search pine pollen, it's already on there. I do that sometimes. I'll post new products, but then I don't tell anyone. I'm just like, we'll see if anyone finds it. So yeah, that's on there. I highly recommend it because, if you're into pine pollen, then it's a good one. And I'll be sharing more info later as well about spore powder versus mushroom extract for the reishi, because I made a video about it and people were like, but you didn't answer the physical benefits. You didn't do this. And I'm like, it's on the website. So I'll do a blog post, probably an article about it, and go more in depth about that. And pine pollen, that's the last new product I have for a little bit. I need to do some more research, and I'm trying a new thing. Actually, no, I'll have a couple more teas, and I'm sampling more incense. I'm sampling more oils. So I'll be getting those on the website at some point. But I have basically a lot of pots cooking, so we'll see. Can lion's mane keep you awake if taken before bed? I've never noticed that. I don't find lion's mane to be energizing. But I can't speak for every company that is selling a lion's mane product. If we're talking about the one that I sell, then I've never noticed it keeping me up or like being energizing. None of my clients or customers have noticed it, and none of my friends have reported it. In fact, many people take it at night before bed, myself included, and it actually helps with sleep from what I've noticed. If it does keep you up, I will go back to one of my previous points, which is probably you need to eat more, is maybe what I would say, or make sure that you've actually had a good meal so that your blood and your mind and everything is sunk and relaxed. Because a lot of the issues that people are dealing with is like their blood isn't regulated or even, so their system gets just whacked out. So definitely for me, like if I don't eat enough, or I go to bed really hungry, then it'll be difficult to fall asleep because the blood isn't really sunk, or I'll just be like kind of uppity. So long story short, I don't think it would keep anyone awake, and I don't have not heard that reported from anyone. So should be all good. Maybe an astragalus extract in the future. That is a good point. I have an astragalus sample arriving, I think on Friday. Yeah, I think Friday, Thursday or tomorrow or Friday, I'll have an astragalus sample and a few other things as well. So I'll try that astragalus out. I think it's like a 40% polysaccharide extract, and I can't remember the astragaloside content. I have to look in my email for that information, but that'll probably be the next one that I would do, because well, I'll have to see how the quality of this one is, but I'm leaning towards that as being the next product, unless something else comes up, or unless I don't know, think of something else, but we'll see. All right, any other questions we got up on here? Have you heard of Kana? If so, what do you think of it? I'm not a fan, but curious what you thought. I've heard of it, but I've never taken it, so I can't comment. I think, let's see, I have to check and see if it's the herb that I'm thinking about. Oh, Kana is Scalecium tortuosum. That's what I thought. Yeah. I've never taken it, so I don't know. It's again one of those things you can buy at like head shops with kratom and blue lotus and a bunch and other random constituents. It's a different realm of herbalism that I don't tend to, get down with. But I think back in the day I wanted to try it, but I just never did. So I don't know. I'm not really a fan of such things, and I don't mess around. Similar to pine pollen, if deer antler is extracted to powder, does it blunt the androgen effects? Probably not, would be my guess. I would say that in general it probably blunts like all the effects. And it'll be probably more nutritive. It's hard to say because it depends on the part of the antler they're using. My guess is if they're taking antler and turning it to a powder, it's probably not the tips, though there are some companies that allegedly use the tips. So again, it depends on the part of because if you're using the lower parts, that would be more like a bone broth, which will be nourishing to the blood, and it won't be as a steroidal. It depends on how it's extracted and the concentration ratio and the quality of the raw materials. It can be very complicated. Many variables is what I mean. But the reason why pine pollen, well, to clarify, the powder that you find online and the powder that I sell is not an extract. It's just the straight pollen that's been cracked, and then it's just the straight powder. So it's not extracted, it's not concentrated. If you were to take that powder and tincture it in alcohol, then you would get more of the androgens because you're just taking them out, and then you can take them sublingually and get them to your system just with the alcohol. But if you're just doing the raw powder, it's not concentrated, it's not extracted, and it's going through your GI tract. So I think that the androgen effects would be less for those reasons. And if you're taking lower dosages, then that's another reason. If you start doing mass like tablespoons, then you're going to start hitting more critical mass and probably get more of a stimulant androgen type of effect. But I think a little bit is probably more nutritive and supportive and beneficial, especially considering the environmental issues or pollutants that a lot of people are dealing with, and how the xenoestrogens can plug up our receptor sites. Especially, this is especially relevant when it comes to the zeolite product that I also have on my website, because why this is cool, why I like it, why I've benefited a lot from it, is because these environmental, or these endocrine disrupting chemicals, let's call them EDCs, is what the World Health Organization calls them. EDCs can basically go in and plug up your receptor sites so that your own stuff can't get in there, nutrition can't get in there, and then stuff can't get out, so things kind of get stuck. So even you might take in things, take in supplements, take in whatever, the receptor site's plugged with plastic or whatever. So part of the thing of the zeolite is can pull that stuff out. Then the stuff we take in is more absorbed and more readily available to the body. And then those receptor sites are filled. So that's part of the reason why I really like it. I basically only like the one that I sell, which is the reason why I sell it, because it's the only one that I ever found that was any good. Let's see, I think there were some questions. Hi from Sydney, Australia. I think we got a couple people in Australia on here right now. Let's see. Where do you get / source the water that you drink? It is a local spring water company that I have delivered to my house. I used to go harvest it myself, but found that to be too laborious and time intensive when I could just pay like $30 a month and have it delivered to my door, and I'd have to drive 2-3 hours round trip and lug all the jugs around. So I highly recommend it doing either of those options, depending on where you live. It's 10 p.m. where I am. Do you think I can brew your 90s sinking shung and sleep okay at Pu-erh? I mean, I really wouldn't recommend it. I would, if it's like 10 p.m. and you're trying to go to bed, then you'd be much better off with something like gynostemma or the rosebuds or the chrysanthemum. I mean, the tea does contain some caffeine. Part of it depends on your metabolism and your sensitivity. Some people can drink caffeine at night before bed and it actually helps them sleep better. But I wouldn't really recommend it, because even if it doesn't keep you up from the caffeine, if you drink a lot and you gong fu brew it, you're going to have to pee a lot because you're drinking a lot of fluid, so that can wake you up too. So, I mean, it wouldn't be my tea of choice at 10 p.m. because I'd like to spend at least an hour or so like brewing through it and enjoying it. Something, like I said, gynostemma, which you can gong fu brew gynostemma all day. It will just keep going and going and going and going. And you definitely would want to give it a rinse, because I remember. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not gonna go on that tangent. Anyways, I think it's funny how these live streams work sometimes. Like towards the end, when I'm ready to go, and actually it seems like it takes 45 minutes or an hour or so for people to start actually jumping on, and the numbers actually to start going up. But usually that's when I'm needing to go and do other things sometimes, because it's about 7 p.m. here. It's getting a bit late, so I need to get some dinner before it is too late, and also I'm really quite hungry. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the recording if you are just now tuning in or tuning in late, because earlier I talked about how to actually brew the tea well and how to get the most out of the tea and how to actually enjoy it. And very key, important things that I mentioned, which can easily just glaze over, but it's things that I highly recommend coming back to and developing skill within on a pretty consistent basis. I subscribed to you back in late 2009 or early 2010. That is like, it's a whole other lifetime. That's way, 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 way back in the beginning. Yeah, 2011. It is pretty crazy how, like, I look back and it doesn't even seem like this has been going on that long, but I guess it has. And it's funny, I lost my channel for about a year, and then it's funny as I'm coming back, just watching my subscriber count, like I'm losing hundreds and hundreds of subscribers every month, and I think it's just because I've had it for so long, and maybe they were fake account. And honestly, probably a lot of it was fake, and it's just been so long, but it's just funny to watch. So hopefully, eventually I can get to 50,000 subscribers and get the plaque from YouTube. Even though I don't put any effort into growing it, I don't elicit people to subscribe. I don't tell people to like or comment. So I'm a pretty shitty YouTuber for all intents and purposes because I don't follow any of the strategies. So maybe I'll have to hire someone to do that for me, because I can't be bothered, and I don't want to spend my time on the computer plugging away at data entry. I really don't have any interest in that. Rather just make it and move on with my life. Let's see, there's like a question. When you say you've been burning the same quinone, do you mean you've been burning the same resin multiple times? Yeah, it's been on my heater for a few weeks. And still going. And probably the amount on there is very minuscule. It's very, very small amount, which I can't really show because of the angle. But I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, so if you follow me on there, you can see the amount that I'm talking about. It's very small, but it's still enough to fill the whole room for weeks. Granted, I'm only burning it for an hour or two at a time. It's not like I just had it on for 24 hours over that whole few weeks, because I don't burn like that typically, because I'm not necessarily in the same place for that long. So yeah, again, like if something's $1,500 a gram or $1,000 a gram, you'd hope it would burn for that long. You'd hope you could get that much out of it, and it turns out you can. Like this little bit here, 0.2 grams, doesn't really look like much, but I think this was $230 or 240 or 220, something like that. And people might look at it and be like, that's not that much for a few $100s, but it's like each one of these pieces, you could easily just shave off a little bit, and that's hours and hours of burning. So you spend $200, but that's like years of burning, probably. Not to mention the psychoactive effects and the sort of spiritual side of it. So it's just a different way of looking at value for money, let's say. But anyways, I'm going to head out and get some food before it gets too late. I've had a busy day, a tiring day. I've gotten a lot of stuff done. And I'm going to wake up and do it all again tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your questions. And remember to check out Hyperion Herbs. I've got the 3 aged teas on there. I'm going to be adding 2 more aged teas by the end of the month. I've posted pine pollen powder on there. Posted the reishi spore powder on there last week as well. So that's in it, and the incense. I think the agarwood incense is almost sold out. The sandalwood they're both almost sold out. But I have another big round, like I doubled my order size the second time around. So I should have that Friday. And so there'll be more incense, and then I have some samples of other types of incense. So I'm going to sample that, and if those are good, which I'm 99% sure that they will be amazing, then I'll have those on there as well. So going to be growing and expanding the teas, growing and expanding the incense and the herb lineup, and trying to keep everything, again, at the highest quality, because I'm admittedly an elitist, and I'm opinionated, and I'm critical and judgmental, and what's another word? Someone said pompous. All those things are true, but the benefit is that I can find good stuff and share it with people. So then the benefit, being the person on the other side, is you don't have to do what I did, which is spend thousands and thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours chasing things down. People can just order it, which is pros and cons sometimes for making things too easy or too accessible to people. So hopefully I'll do more work as well to educate people to discern quality for themselves and to be able to appreciate more of the nuances and subtleties of the higher quality things. Because this is a thing that people don't realize, I think. You would think higher quality would be stronger, louder, more potent, more on your face, more aggressive. Typically, that's the opposite. Higher quality is usually more subtle, more refined, more minute, more nuanced, more soft, more gentle, more implicit. So it takes a certain amount of refinement and degree to be able to appreciate that. Is it expensive? Is what expensive? Um, which item are you referring to? I would say no. For any of the things that I've mentioned, it's not expensive, because I don't think anything on my website is really expensive, because the quality basis for what it is and what it can do, I think it's a bargain, honestly, especially for what I put into it to find it and make it available in a way that's really easy to access. Price, value, and expense are all relative things. You know, some people might think that spending $12 a gram on agarwood is expensive. But then we get into things like this, which are like $1,200 to $1,500 a gram. And some people might say that's expensive, but the quality difference, is it worth 100 times the price? I don't know. But again, I'm not selling those, at least not yet anyways. Let's say it's not say that I haven't thought about it and I have not considered it, because I have. And I might someday, just for fun. I often toy with the idea of just starting businesses and not caring if they succeed or if anyone ever buys anything. And then I have a bunch of joke businesses that I have like outlined as well. I'll maybe start around the well. Can you do a video in the future about intense energy trapped around the liver area into the back, or what else that could be? I would say, can you explain what intense energy means? Describe it. I don't know what that even means, or what, I should say what you mean by that, because energy can mean a million things. People use that word differently. We all have our own subjective experience. So unless I actually can understand what you mean, then I can't really make any real degree of comment. I could make up a lot of stuff, but I don't, you know. So, yeah. We have the same birthday, June 25th, similar grouchy temperament, but we both mean well. Good night. Interesting. Yeah. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a good rest of your day or night, depending on where you are on the planet. Remember to check out the new products and check out the website. I'm going to have a lot of new stuff coming soon, and a lot of new and exciting projects and developments on the horizon. New website coming soon as well. So during meditation, there is an intense blockage. Feels like energy trapped, traveling out of my side, or a bubble that could burst. I mean, I would just kind of ignore it, to be honest. Because how you get rid of blockages, if it is a blockage, is not by really focusing on it. Because this is what people do, which is wrong. I feel a blockage here, so I'm going to use my mind and push this blockage out. And that doesn't work. I'm going to use my mind and visualize light here and get rid of that blockage. It doesn't really work. I'm going to, what else do people do? I don't know. Either way, I could go on with examples. The point I'm making is these are all strong intentions and actions of the mind going up against another strong intention and action of the mind. Because if you're feeling a blockage here, it just means your mind is contracted and it happens to be here. It doesn't always have any correlation. Like your wrist might be real tight, but it could be fear, it could be anxiety, it could be excess joy, it could be any emotion or any type of traumatic experience. Just like people assume deeper in the body or something like that equals bigger trauma. It's not really how it works. And that's not really, like just people do that, and it's basically what it is probably some aspect of your mind is contracted. So there's some thing is tight and wound up, and the more you put attention to it is the more you're feeding it, the more you're trying to push against it is feeding it or labeling it and giving it a judgment and saying it's this, all of these things. It's giving it more energy. It's trapped energy. It's doing this. It's doing that. That's more fuel. So those are all the things to generally not do, but those are all the things that generally people will do. If it is really a thing, honestly, just find a good acupuncturist, and if they're halfway decent, it's really not difficult to move energy. If it's liver qi stagnation, you can take herbs for that. You can get acupuncture, and then again to the basic habits that I talked about earlier in the thing. It's not that, like, there's a big disservice that people do when they spiritualize things or make things esoteric or make things energetic, is it like becomes this grandiose big thing, or it becomes more complicated or more serious or more special or more important or more superior than something else, when in reality it isn't. It's just all of those layers of the mind which are just going to prevent the thing from ever resolving in the first place, because all of those things are just more fuel for the problem in the first place. Which honestly, that type of mindset is probably why that problem exists in the first place. I don't mean you personally, I'm speaking generally, hoping that something is relevant and helpful. But these are all just common mistakes that people make. And the reason why I point out mistakes, and sometimes people complain, oh, you're being negative, just tell me what to do. It's like, well, I don't know you, I don't know your situation, you're an adult, and you're not paying me money, I'm not a medical practitioner, so I can't really accurately say, here's exactly what you should do. But I could outline 5 to 10 things that will not work and will probably be wrong, and then if someone's intelligent and they have some responsibility and empowerment and take some fortitude in their own capacity, then they can look for what I'm saying and then look in their own experience and then ascertain, am I doing any of these things? I could just stop doing that and that might help. Or I could reflect and then gain some insight and have more perspective. Because sometimes the solution is just to not do something and just forget about something and move on, than just doing more things to do it, or because that can just kind of make it worse. So that's why I will sometimes speak in certain ways and be negative, but it's only negative, I think, to people that aren't intelligent and aren't smart. Because the best teachers that I've ever had, they will generally outline what not to do and outline the common mistakes, because that's exactly the things that people will most likely do. So if you can ascertain that and understand and see that, then if you cannot do them, or at least do them to a lesser degree, you save yourself a tremendous amount of time and energy and stress and struggle and effort. But that is, again, is a personal decision. Sometimes people want it hard and they want to prove how spiritual they are, or how tough they are, or how strong they are, or how much they're suffering, or all these things that people do. So just a different perspective and just kind of giving some background or rationale upon why I might say things or not say things in a certain way. But hopefully some of that tangential long ass rant could be helpful or useful. But I guess a long story short, if you find an actual good acupuncturist, they can help move it. If it's legitimately stagnant qi, then you can just take herbs, get some acupuncture, adjust your lifestyle and your habits, and that should go away within 2 weeks to a few months, depending on what is actually going on. So that's my thoughts on that subject. Hopefully it's helpful. If not, but I suspect many of the things that I said should be relevant, and I highly recommend coming back and reflecting on those things and giving them some time. Because another big mistake that people make is resonating with things or agreeing with things. Oftentimes this is wrong, because if you hear something and you immediately agree or resonate with it, it's probably just validating what you already believe. So it's probably just wrong. Unless what you already believe and what you're already doing is yielding perfect health, perfect lifestyle, and all these things, which odds are it isn't, because you're a human being and none of us are at that level. So oftentimes what's actually true or what's actually helpful is sometimes not enjoyable. We don't agree with it, we don't like it, because that's a funny way that our mind seems to work. So anyways, that was a pretty good question. Hopefully is somewhat helpful. If not, you can't be too mad because it's a free live stream on YouTube. And some guy ranting and raving while he's drinking very expensive tea and burning expensive agar wood. So anyways, that is it for me for tonight because I gotta use the bathroom, I gotta get some dinner, and I got other things to do before it gets too late. And I think the sun's kind of coming out. Again, you're quite welcome. Happy to answer questions anytime. Hopefully it's been helpful, and hopefully enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for tuning in the video. Remember to check out HyperionHerbs.com, which is, of course, my main website, which I'd hope people would realize at this point. But it's still funny. There'll be a video. It'll happen sometimes. I'm talking about Hyperion reishi, and there'll be Hyperion herbs at the bottom. And then people will comment, where can I get this mushroom you're talking about? I'm like, well, there's a link. There's a text, there's the title, there's me talking about it. I'm